All right, guys, I've got an exciting one here for you. We are talking about the 7 biggest fantasy football busts so far. The biggest sucks, the biggest busts so far. I mean, we're only 2 weeks in, guys, but you know me, I like to rip into players that are not producing where they should be. So 7 players. Now, I took to Instagram and I asked you guys who I should include in this list. And I got a great feedback, and I've included those guys. And it's funny because even before you guys were going to put your input in here, I was actually going to include those guys anyway. So I can't wait to dive in and rip into these guys and try to figure out what the problem is. We're gonna deep dive in because I got a lot of questions myself on why these guys are not performing. So we're going to deep dive into each one and talk about it because it's an open discussion. So dive into the comments here on YouTube. Deep dive 7 biggest busts so far. Again, we're only 2 weeks in, going into our 3rd week, but we need to address these elite players because they're high draft capital. We invested high draft capital in them, so we need to know what is going on, all right? Now, if you're hungry, I want you to write this code down. Whenever you're hungry, whenever you're thirsty, it doesn't matter, guys. The code is FFC20 for Fantasy Football Counselor 20. Write it on your hand. Actually, don't do that. Write on a paper, on a chalkboard. Do they still make those things? Write it down, FFC20. This is the code you want to write down for Hooters.com. Head on over to Hooters.com or download the app, guys. Very simple. And upon checkout, use the code FFC20 to save $10 on an order of 30 or more on takeout or delivery. Let me repeat that so you understand. Save $10 on an order of 30 or more on takeout or delivery in select locations across America. Go treat yourself right now, guys. Try the wings. Try the great food. They've got amazing nachos. Everything comes in really nice for you guys on delivery. You guys will enjoy it. The code is FFC20, Hooters.com, or download the app right now. Experience it, guys. Enhance that game-watching experience. Try some amazing food, Hooters.com. Go do that right now. All right, guys, let's dive into this show. We're talking 7 biggest busts so far. Let's get to it. All right, guys, if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button, thumbs up, and a comment below. Who is the biggest suck so far? Let's dive into it. First player. All right, let's talk about him. I've been getting a lot of heat for this guy. Okay, I've put my name on this guy. This guy has not been performing the way I want him to perform. They call him the king, but he hasn't been acting like it. He has been acting lackluster, to say the least. I won't rip into him too much because he's my guy. And I want to note he had a tough matchup. I don't like to baby anybody, okay? But he did play Buffalo. The guy I'm talking about is Derrick Henry, who, again, is currently sitting, and I pull it up in PPR all the time. We always talk 1-point PPR. Currently sitting, ready for this, 36th amongst running backs. I mean, this guy's done nothing. He actually had, believe it or not, he had 107 yards on the ground on 34 attempts. So the attempts are there. It's not like the attempts aren't there. He's just not doing anything with them, right? 3.1 yards per carry and a touchdown, equaling 16.7 PPR fantasy points. Again, putting him 36th amongst running backs. This is literally unacceptable. But there's good news, okay? Understand, guys, he played Buffalo. Buffalo's the legit team offensively and defensively this year. And his O-line has been banged up. So you got to include O-line, some tough matchups, getting back into the groove, getting back into the rhythm, first week, second week jitters. But I am literally out of excuses at this point for Derrick Henry. This is a guy that I suggested to draft first overall. Now, mind you, I want to give you guys a little disclaimer here and a little bit of feedback here when we're talking about all players. There's no player that's been perfect this year other than like Cooper Kupp the past 2 weeks, which is the guy I told you to avoid. So I'm taking all full ownership. But what goes up must come down. Jefferson had a bad second week. Jamar Chase had a bad second week, right? Devontae Adams scored just under 10 points, I believe. He was saved by a touchdown. He had a bad week, week 2. Other guys, which I'm going to talk to, had bad weeks. So I like the fact that I'm still seeing volume from Derrick Henry. Like the volume is still there. So I'm not overly concerned, but you've got to pick it up. I mean, 1.9 yards per carry in your second game against Buffalo, 13 attempts, 1.9 yards per carry, 25 yards. Without that touchdown, it would have just been absolutely it's still pretty disgusting at 8.5 points. in standard. And what do you get in PPR? Not much more. Yeah, 8.5 points because he didn't catch anything. So 8.5 points. I had standard pulled up. I switched to PPR. It's like still 8.5 points. So I'm not worried. Some people ask me, am I worried? No, I'm not. Derrick Henry's still the king. I still think he's going to have a good year, but he's got to step it up. So he's the first guy on my radar here that jumps out as the biggest suck, biggest bust so far. Number 2 here, I'm going to rip into him because I told you to avoid this guy, and I'm completely staying away from him. And I totally stayed away from him for reasons that are different than what's happening right now. And his just lack of performance at this point. The guy I'm talking about is Dalvin Cook, sitting 28th amongst running backs, guys. 26 attempts, 107 yards, 4.1 yards per carry, 0 touchdowns so far, accumulating for 21.4 fantasy points. Now, if you look at his last game against Philly, 6 attempts, 17 yards, 2.8 yards per carry, and 0 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook, and he's not hurt. And he's not hurt. So there's a problem here. And the problem I was saying was, he's hit his peak. He's hit his stride. What does he got to go out there and kill himself on the field for? He doesn't have to. He's been paid. He's been incentivized. He hit his peak. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if Madison came in and stole the job. So Dalvin Cook has hit his peak. He's peaked. He's done for me. And again, he misses that time all the time every single season. So this guy was actually drafted, according to the Consheeps, higher than Derrick Henry. He was coming off higher. So he's currently sitting higher. He's ranked higher. He's 28th compared to 36th currently in rankings based on where they're sitting in overall points amongst running backs. But it's very sad that these 2 first-round picks are just not performing where they should be. Dalvin Cook, I have no stock. Should you be worried? Yes. I told you not to draft him. I'm not sold on him. I'm just not sold on him being the guy. Again, when you look at it from the attempt standpoint, let's take a look at his attempts. 20 attempts game 1, 6 in game 2. That's a bit of a concern. He was getting the volume against Green Bay in week 1. Week 2, not so hot. So am I concerned? A little bit with Dalvin Cook. But, if you have him, maybe consider a trade. But I would trade once he has a high peak game. All right. Third guy here. This is literally depressing. I got to talk about this guy. Terrible. And I'm talking terrible. The guy I'm talking about is Zeke Elliott. All right. Zeke Elliott is currently sitting 48th right now amongst running backs. Not 1, not 2, not 10, not 20, not 30, not 40, but 48th. Okay. The guy had 25 attempts, 105 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, doing better than his counterparts that are sucking, but 11.8 fantasy points in 2 games. This is really, really ugly. Really, really disgusting. I mean, he had 15 carries or rushing attempts week 2, 10 week 1. Tampa was a bit of a tougher defense. Still averaged 5.2 yards per carry for 4.9 points standard and 5.9 points PPR. This is a problem. Now, what I was seeing with him this year, we saw a decline coming, right? We saw the trajectory of Pollard going up the past 3 years and decline for Zeke Elliott. But for a team that relies on him, a team that believes in him, the veteran, and a workhorse guy, he still gets the volume. He still finished top 10 last year amongst running backs. I was thinking he'd start sloping back up. One last hurrah. First 2 weeks are not indicating that. So do you bench him in week 3? That's a big question. It really depends on who else you have. If you want robust RB, I've got Breece Hall. I've got him in a league, but I've also got Breece Hall. Whereas benching had his mini breakout, 13 points, 1 receiving touchdown last year. So I think they're going to use Breece the Beast more. And I think the Jets have that momentum, right? I think they got a win under their belt now. So I like Zeke Elliott. I really do. I think he's a good talent. I like the value in the 3rd round, but right now he sucks. He's one of the biggest sucks, biggest busts so far this year. Hopefully he turns it around. Week 3 is a pivotal week on, is he going to do something? I think he does. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does and if he's going to step it up, something to monitor. And again, I do a starts and sits show on Thursday, so make sure you guys tune in to that one. You definitely want to tune in to starts and sits. I do it at the end of the week, okay? So tune in, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And again, leave us a 5-star rating review. It helps a lot. I'm going to be going over this, okay? That's number 3. Number 4 here. This guy was drafted in the 2nd round. I don't have any stock with him because I went robust RB. And there's this big thing going on. Like, if you went robust RB, you're wrong. If you went, robust wide receiver, I think you're still wrong, right? There's no right answer here. There's been a lot of craziness going on because, like I said, Adams, Chase, Jefferson, they all busted. A.J. Brown busted week 2, right? Jonathan Taylor busted as a running back week 2, didn't do well. Henry busted. Cook busted, right? So a lot of uncertainty, a lot of wide receiver threes are stepping up, right? It's really, really, really strange. Like if I pull up here, I'm going to pull up week 2. If you look at some of the wide receivers, Garrett Wilson, Christian Kirk, which I was high on, Drake London, which I love, but guys like Rashad Bateman, Noah Brown, off everybody's radar, right? Weird names that are just kind of Greg Dortch, right, from Arizona, finished 22nd in week 2. So there's a lot of weird names, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of volatility at the wide receiver position. And again, I'm so happy that I still got my robust RB, and I still think they're going to do fine. I'm not concerned. Henry, maybe Cook if he stays healthy, but I'm not concerned. I still think I know robust RB is the way to go because I'm getting that value. I got Amon St. Brown, Christian Kirk, and Drake London go off, and I've got stock in all those guys this week. They went off in week 2, so I'm not concerned. And wide receivers are busting. So this guy, again, number 4 here is CeeDee Lamb, the guy I'm talking about. Now, CeeDee Lamb is sitting 44th amongst wide receivers right now. Been absolutely terrible. Now, he has an injury at quarterback. Obviously, Dak is out. Cooper Rush comes in. When you look at CeeDee Lamb the past couple weeks, 11 targets both weeks, which is relatively healthy, and just didn't get anything done with it, right? In week 1, 29 yards, 75 yards week 2, no touchdowns. So you're looking at absolutely nothing here. He had 15.1 points week 1, 4.9 week 2. This is not good. It's not a good return on investment for a guy who's supposed to be a wide receiver 1. All right. So am I concerned? Yeah, I am. He lost his quarterback. Wherever he's out, let's say he's out 4, 5, 6 weeks, right? He's out. Okay. As of right now. So it's going to affect you. And if you spend a second round pick on CeeDee Lamb, that's a problem. Make sure you add some depth at wide receiver and go back and check. If you still have time to get the waiver wire, and I did a waiver wire week 3, go back and check some of the people that you may want to pick up. All right, guys, at wide receiver, there's some options there. All right, so that's number 4, CeeDee Lamb, big disappointment. Can he rise again? Not excited right now about him. Second round, very expensive. Glad I don't have any stock there. I saw the ceiling. Don't get me wrong, but not good. Okay, number 5 here. This one I got DM'd a lot about, sitting 127th amongst wide receivers, guys. This is very depressing. Darnell Mooney. This is something that I didn't see. Now, we're only 2 weeks in, so again, this is not like we're talking it's the end of the season here. So there's time, guys. There's still some time here. But I had him started in the league, and he really, really just screwed me. He absolutely just did me completely wrong when you're talking about fantasy points here. Darnell Mooney, check this out, guys. This is so depressing. 2 targets, minus 4 yards, 0.6 fantasy points PPR, and 1.8 points in week 1. Okay, I don't know what to tell you. 5 targets in 2 games with 0 touchdowns. 5 targets in 2 games. He should have more than double or triple that in 1 game. We should be looking at 20 to 30 targets total. We're looking at 5 for minus 4 receiving yards. This is a guy in his 3rd season who looked good last year. He had a 1,000-yard receiving season last year. Mind you, he wasn't good in the touchdowns. He had 4, but he looked good last year, right? 81 receptions on 140 targets, 1,055 yards last year. He's coming into the season. He had time in the offseason to build that rapport with Justin Fields, and it's not going. This is beyond depressing. Do you drop him? I say still hold on to him, but I definitely say bench him for this week. Okay, Darnell Mooney, biggest bust so far. Big disappointment. I've got stock in him in a league. I think 1 or 2 leagues, I believe. I think 1. I don't know. Either way, I'm in 4 big money leagues. And I've got some stock in him. He really let me down, screwed my 1 week. And I ended up losing, I think, by 2 points last week, just based on Mooney just crap in the bed. So very depressing, Mooney. I think he steps it up. I think he's going to get a lot of heat. And they're playing Houston this week. Relatively good matchup. Him and Davis Mills has to step it up as well. Davis Mills, Dameon Pierce has to step it up. He only got really going. I say take it easy a little bit on your Dameon Pierce and your Breece Hall, because week 2 was the week when they finally got integrated. So I would definitely pump the brakes on that and take it easy. I wouldn't get too angry at those guys. I still think they have a high ceiling. But Mooney, man, you have to step it up. Absolutely depressing. All right. So that's number 5. I got 2 more here for you in an honorable mention. Next guy here is beyond me. I just don't get it. And again, I'm okay because I was more higher on Drake London. I like the value better and I like the opportunity better. Everyone kept saying Kyle Pitts. I have Kyle Pitts in 1 out of the 4 leagues. I ended up getting him in the 3rd round simply because I believe in that league. Tight ends are weighted 1.5. So I'm like, he was sitting there. I'm like, I'm just going to go Kyle Pitts here, right? So I've got him. He's been crap in the bed. Currently sitting, where is this guy sitting amongst tight end? Like 30, something crazy. I'm going to pull him up here. 35th amongst wide receivers in the rankings. I mean, 10 targets, 4 receptions, 7.8 fantasy points in 2 games. This is beyond depressing. This is a guy that's ultra elite talent. Apparently, I had the beat writer on the show. She was telling me that he looked amazing in training camp. Not good. So Kyle Pitts has to step it up. And then Arthur Smith has the audacity to say, well, I don't care about fantasy. It's about winning. I don't know. I don't get the exact quote, exactly how he said it, but it's something along the line of fantasy doesn't matter. We're out to win. But dude, if you want to win, you got to feed your, your top target, receiving target. Obviously Drake London isn't, in my opinion anyway, but he's a tight end, but you got to feed him, bottom line, if you want to win. So you're losing, you're not winning, and you're not feeding Kyle Pitts. So let's feed Kyle Pitts. Maybe we can string out some wins. So Kyle Pitts, do you start him next week? Depends on what your other tight end options are. Again, check the starts and sits episode I do tomorrow. All right, guys. Last one here, and I got an honorable mention. Very depressing here, and I've had high hopes in him, and I'm not the only one. We're going to go to a quarterback here. The guy I'm talking about here is Russell Wilson, sitting 18th amongst quarterbacks. Again, we're 2 weeks in. I just want to remind you that. I want to keep reminding you guys there's still time. Russell Wilson was the guy, I think it was last year or the year before. I think it was last year. Came out strong and then kind of tapered off near the end of the season, fell off. This year, not looking good at all. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, sitting 18th in fantasy points. I mean, just not looking good. Not looking good at all. He's got 86.5 passer rating and just not looking good. I don't know how else to tell you this. I mean, Judy got hurt week 2. I don't know how long I don't think it's going to be a long injury. Hopefully he comes back. He's connecting with Sutton, a couple of his tight ends. They've got to pick it up. They've really got to pick it up. Russell Wilson got paid $1 bazillion. He's got to pick it up. I mean, Denver believes in him. I don't know. I look at guys like, I'm going to give you an example here. Justin Herbert. I'm going to take a look at Jalen Hurts. I'll give you another example here. Who was the other guy? Lamar Jackson. Okay. Guys that haven't got those mega contracts yet, right? I look at Russell Wilson, lives the high life, got a good looking wife. Everything's going good. He's a baller. I mean, makes you wonder, do they lose their edge? Do they lose that hunger? Right? I saw a bunch of screenshots from week 2 where he had people open. I don't know who it was. Some guy, I think it was tight end, wide open in the end zone, and he's missing it. So, is it that he's getting older? Is it that he's lost his hunger? He's been paid. He's been incentivized. He's got everything he wants, everything he needs, right? So hopefully he picks it back up. I'm sure he wants to win a Super Bowl. I'm sure he wants to do it with Denver. And he wants to get it done. So I don't know how to tell you this, but I think he's got to step it up this week. And I think he does. I think he bounces back. But as of right now, looking like a big bust at the quarterback position. And he was drafted for decent value, around 6-7, right? He wasn't, a second or third round pick, but he's got to step it up because, again, the talent is there. The opportunity is there. The weapons are there. They've given him everything he needs to succeed. He's got to step it up, right? And the final guy here is Juju Smith bonus here. I think that's 8 for you. Juju, I mean, he's been crap in the bed. I don't know how to tell you. What is he sitting? Like 60th amongst wide receivers. I'm going to pull it up. Juju is not a guy I was high on. And I said, I've got no Juju stock because there's so much volatility in that position, on that team, I should say. Yeah, wide receiver position on the Kansas City Chiefs. They distribute the ball everywhere. It's going to be a Hardman one week. It's going to be Juju this week. It's going to be whoever catches the ball. Kelsey next week. It's going to be variable, right? So he's just not getting it done. He was supposed to be slated as the wide receiver 1, just didn't get it done there. So I've got no Juju stock. Just had to mention it because all the Chiefs were telling you Juju, 5th, 6th round pick, just not a good return on investment. Again, remember, we're 2 weeks in, all right? But I stayed away. All right, so those are the biggest busts. Drop a comment below. Let me know who the biggest bust so far is. 2 weeks in, getting into week 3. Check out the starts and sits coming tomorrow. Subscribe, thumbs up. I appreciate you. And head on over to Hooters.com or download the app. Use code FFC upon checkout to save, all right? Go order some food right now. FFC20 is the code. Hooters.com. Go do that right now. Save some money on your order. Order some wings and save that code whenever you're hungry. All right, guys? Subscribe, thumbs up. I appreciate you. Hopefully you enjoyed this show. Bringing it to ya. Ripping into these guys. Step up, guys. Week 3 is going to be a big factor and a deciding factor in the trajectory on how these guys are going to do. All right, guys? Appreciate you. I'm out.